Hello Minigame fan, I love Metroidvania, so here are 50 to look forward to, excluding titles like Frontier Hunter, Erza's Wheel of Fortune, where a little bird told me that it's slated for release in December, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Let's begin with Elderand, a pixel art dark fantasy title that kind of looks like the Tarnishing of Juxtia from earlier this year, where the action looks fast-paced and is not a Souls-like at all, where there does appear to be character customization with some fantastic boss designs. I've also had my eye on Rusted Moss, since this includes more twin-stick shooting elements, as well as an impressive grappling hook, set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland and has a very interesting colour palette. The almost bullet hell style boss battles could be interesting as well, so be sure to drop it a wishlist. A title new to the channel is Neon Moon, where you play as the Neon Demon, having to gather the power of fireflies in order to defeat something known as the Dark Knight. From the visuals and animations, you can clearly see the Hollow Knight influence, which you will see in many games down on this list as well, where it's interesting how it took 5 years or so for Hollow Likes to become a thing. The dark fairy tale setting of Kingdom Shell is the most interesting part of it, where you play as a criminal half-blood who has demon blood coursing in your veins, unwillingly enlisted by the Kingdom Guard to protect it from nightmarish creatures. Where I quite like the pixel art, but maybe the melee combat animations could be a little flashier in my opinion. I've long had my eye on Æmbrosia, a pixel art steampunk Metroidvania which looks great, where it did show signs of life with a tightened up trailer and changes in the spelling of the game. Where the unique hook here is that you're supposed to be able to customize your guns by mixing and matching parts, although with how development is going with this game, I'm not sure if that is still a feature. A game that was initially slated for 2021 but got pushed to 2022 and now into 2023 is Curse of the Sea Rats, a self-styled Metroidvania with awesome art and animations reminding me of 90s Disney animated movies. There is a choice of 4 playable characters, which is atypical of a Metroidvania, and even supports co-op for up to 4 players, and does have an RPG style skill tree, so it does seem to be straying from the pure definition of a Metroidvania, but it looks awesome and should be fun. A neat looking Metroidvania is Nara Facing Fire, coming to us, curiously, from a development team who are also family members comprising of brothers and sisters if I'm not mistaken, where this certainly looks very promising. However, there isn't much information available on the game itself, where it says that this has an insanely deep story of love, hate, and a clash between lights and shadows, which is about as generic as it can get, but does have some beautiful backgrounds and lighting effects. One thing that does weird me out is the very side-on view of this character, but I'm sure that I'll get used to this eventually. Another relatively early title to look forward to is SELINI, one that also comes to us from a family, but it's a father and son combination here. This is set in a dystopian world in some very foggy wastelands, where you seem to be battling primarily against machines and robots, with a little bit of a vibe similar to that of Inside. But it's a way off since their Kickstarter campaign is yet to launch. Another long in development title is Rune Fencer Illyia, one that has been pushed from 1 year to the next as well, but has you in control of a runist in search of a missing twin sister after the airship that they were travelling on crash lands in a fallen kingdom. It does have an ambitious scope with plenty of enemy variety and even food recipes and ingredients, which is probably why it's taking so long to make, but the combat should be a highlight as you use various runes to augment your abilities. There is, however, something a little off about the pixel art since it doesn't quite pop, which I often attribute to the lack of outlines, but it looks promising and is one to watch. While Gold Project does have very minimalist character and enemy designs, being essentially blobs of black, there is certainly a sense of style to this game which makes it look awesome. You can either choose to serve the Goddess of Light, or to embrace the corruption of gold, where these feed into a karma system that will actually change the world and level design. Off the top of my head, I don't have a great example of a Metroidvania that does something like this, which makes it unique, but that must of course be supported by awesome combat and fun exploration, so let's see if it meets expectations. I've highlighted Mira and the Legend of the Djinns a number of times on this channel, since I'm genuinely curious about this, where our protagonist is making their way through the deserts, mountains and floating islands in order to uncover the secret of the last Djinn. This is inspired by Moroccan and Amazigh culture, which you do not get every day in games, so I hope to see some awesome environments and enemy designs. In particular, the lava segments in this trailer looks good, but hopefully the combat is up to snuff as well.
Night after night, nothing but darkness.
I've been expecting you.
Oh yeah.
The dark, loathsome cabal has decided to give you your very own reality dating show.
Honestly, I was a little on the fence about Romancelvania, but they seem to have tightened up the visuals for this comedic Metroidvania crossed with a dating sim. You play as Dracula himself, now the star of a reality dating show hosted by the Grim Reaper. We are getting to know a cast of 12 monsters through the course of the game. It's quirky and weird and atypical, which makes it of interest, showcasing what indie games are capable of. A newly announced title is Dewdrop Dynasty, having just successfully crossed the finish line in its Kickstarter campaign a couple of days ago, where you play as a bee trying to find a way home. I like the simple pixel art used here, being self-described as a neo-retro game, which I don't disagree with, where there is an increased focus on dramatic storytelling in addition to the boss battles and exploration, with an intriguing setting named the Underland, which comprises of locations like cheese mines, adding a little bit of whimsy. A fantastic looking game that asks the question, what if Celeste but Gardens is A Sister's Journey, a pixel art Metroidvania that I think looks awesome, with an increased focus on precision platforming that makes it of interest. Generally speaking, Metroidvanias do not place as much of an emphasis on platforming, excuse the White Palace PTSD, but rather choose to focus on combat and boss fights, which is the genre norm. So for a game like this to flip things on their head while still retaining the combat elements is an interesting choice. As such, it might not appeal to as large an audience since there are people who love either extremes but not both mixed together, but who knows, the challenge and mesocore factor might make this the next big hit. Another relatively new entry is BIOMORPH, a fantastic hand-drawn title with again some pretty clear Hollow Knight influences, but the outlines are less thick and it has a little bit of a sci-fi element as well. The twist here is that our hero is able to steal the powers of the enemies using their abilities in the exploration, puzzle solving, and possibly combat as well, with a fantastic look and is another one to watch. A game new to this channel is Lotus Knight, again being a Hollow-like Metroidvania where you play as a girl born from a lotus, adventuring in a world filled with flowers. I usually give games a pass even if they are heavily inspired by something, as long as they make it their own, but the downward slash in particular seems pretty egregious, but at least there isn't geo flying out of enemies after you defeat them, so here's hoping that they can make it their own. I quite like the look of Astra Fading Stars, reminding me a little bit of Isolates released earlier this year, where this is a gorgeous hand-drawn title as well. It has things on a slightly more cosmic scale, where the stars are fading and you have to fight against the darkness that is consuming them. Central to all of these are clues scattered about the world, which you need to get to uncover the truth, so there might be a central narrative that is compelling enough to keep you playing. I love the look and animations of SAK'D, a Metroidvania title where you play as a pillow, exploring the world of dreams and nightmares. As can be seen from the opening animation, the quality here looks top-notch, which does also somewhat translate into the in-game look as well, although at a cursory glance, I do think that the combat feedback could be tighter with how enemies react to your attacks. However, it is fairly early on in development as well, with a Kickstarter yet to come, but it does appear that quite a bit of work has gone into this so far, so stay tuned to the channel and I'll let you know when the campaign is live. The pixel art title LUCID is also worth a mention, with the most recent news being that they have signed with publisher Apogee Entertainment, which should hopefully mean that development will be proceeding along at a nice clip from here on out. It is set in a world that has become corrupted, where as one of the few remaining sentinels, you must traverse the treacherous landscape in order to fulfill a solemn promise. This mixes weapon options as well as something known as crystal arts, which you need to master, where its Steam store page does show off some amazing pixel art as well, so hop on over to feast your eyes. A fantastic looking grimdark title that I've had my eye on is Moadra, looking like Grime crossed with Metroid, where a very predator looking main character traverses an alien world in search of something dark and terrifying buried deep within the planet. It's a ranged combat focused title, and I do think that the way that the character curls up in a ball when jumping is especially reminiscent of Samus. You do see a glimpse of the freeform progression system in this, so there are some RPG elements and choice of upgrades. If you enjoy grimdark titles, do put it on your wishlist. A game which had an unsuccessful Kickstarter campaign is Shyftrs, coming to us from a team in New Zealand, but the good news is that they're still continuing to develop the game, but with the caveat that we don't really know when this will be done. This is another hand-drawn entry with less obvious Hollow Knight influences, but the hook of this game is right at the end of the trailer, so do keep watching and get excited. I'm also interested in the combo-based combat with apparently quite a lot of variety, so I hope to play this someday. Another game which has been stuck in some sort of development hell is The Crown Stone's Mira, a fantastic looking dark fantasy entry set in the land of the dead. The environment and enemy designs look great, although we do get just a handful of generic bullet points on their Steam store page, so there's not too much information available in terms of story, but they do mention activating chakras for new skills and inspiration from Dark Souls and Castlevania, so here's hoping we get more news soon. Many of you in the comments have pointed out how blatant the Hollow Knight inspiration in Chiaroscuro is, and I would have to agree in that while it does use largely silhouetted figures, the design of the main character in particular is egregious, but I do still think that this will at least be decent. The gimmick of the game is playing with light and dark, more thematically than mechanically as compared to something like a puzzle platformer, but according to its Kickstarter campaign, the initial target release was June 2022, but now that that has passed, maybe a 2023 release would be likely. Not to be all crazy and call everything a Hollow-like, but Last Vanguard sure gives off a similar vibe, but the developers have made it their own with quite an interesting looking main character and world, and of course the focus on ranged combat instead. The range versus melee weapon divide in Metroidvanias is interesting, since it affects things like level design and how much health enemies and bosses have, so I do think that there's something here and I cannot wait to play. One of the most gorgeous Metroidvanias in development is Glimmer in Mirrah, having you exploring this strange parallel world that has an almost fairy tale storybook-like quality to the game, but does have fearsome bosses as well. Mirrored universes are nothing new in games, but this teases an almost Celeste-like Badalin version of your main character, where the ranged combat does look good as well, making it one to watch. The developer of Ceplion did reach out, and I was very impressed with this, being a medieval fantasy title where protagonist primarily wields a crossbow, which is a fun weapon in games. The pixel art here is good, along with some awesome animations and an increased focus on precision platforming, which, like A Sister's Journey covered earlier, might be hit or miss. It does come to us from a solo developer, which is very impressive, and does remind me of something like Cat Maze in terms of vibes. Another fantastic looking entry is AWAKEN Astral Blade, a stylish dark fantasy title that does remind me of Vigil the Longest Night. It is from a Chinese developer, so the translation on the Steam store page seems rough, but I think that the main character has become a host to an alien parasite, which is somehow giving her the ability to take on monsters and demons. Things are in flux with this, since as compared to the last time we took a look, it appears that the design of the main character has completely changed, but it's a promising game to keep an eye on. One of the games that I'm eagerly looking forward to is Savior, another gorgeous pixel art entry that has quite a fluid looking parkour system and awesome animations, and I do like how this mixes a fantasy medieval world with some futuristic cityscapes and robots. This was kickstarted in 2019, so it has been a while, so maybe we get a release next year, where the developer has been fairly good with updates, but a point of concern is that they were hiring an additional programmer and pixel artist as recently as January this year, so fingers crossed they are on track to get it done. Rubi, the Wayward Mira, sports a wonderful pixel art style which I have a huge soft spot for, with the artist posting regular updates on Twitter so you can get a better look at the game. This is about saving a dying planet, again mixing both sci-fi and fantasy, with lasers and futuristic compounds to explore, alongside giant monsters and magic. If anything, the character's idle animation seems a little too active, but overall, I think this looks great and is one to look forward to.
Come, little gloomling, you have been chosen. Wield me, and we can grow strong.
Another gorgeous entry is DOOMBLADE, where you play as Gloom Girl, the last of the Gloom folk, lured out of hiding by a sentient weapon known as DOOMBLADE, which grants you their power in exchange for revenge.
Together, we can take my powers back.
I thought that developer Muro Studios' first title in Shadow Bug from 2017 was a neat little game, where this looks to be a refined and expanded version of that. If I'm not wrong, this will utilize the mouse to target your attacks, as indicated by the red cursor moving around on screen, which is similar to Shadow Bug, so it gets on the board for how unique it is.
The lives of all who defied me. This is where it all starts, little one. Down to the depths we depart.
Okay, the long in development Heartforth Illyia gets on the list as being the only representative of the long in development games that might as well be vaporware, where again, of course it got my attention due to the pixel art. While you do play as a wizard, you have a variety of attacks in addition to spells at your disposal, including bombs and even swinging your sleeve, with a Symphony of the Night inspired leveling system, which is why people got so excited for this all those many years ago on Kickstarter. However, 2022 saw the release of Ghost Song, which turned out incredibly well, so fingers crossed we will get to play this soon. We also have the very Metroid-like Rebel Transmute, one that added Rebel to the title as it launched on Kickstarter a couple of months ago, with that being successful, so hopefully it's full steam ahead on development. I don't know what else to say other than this is very Metroid-like in all aspects, especially in the environments and enemies, but that's not necessarily a bad thing since Nintendo has taken that series in a completely different direction. The clean pixel art is a highlight, as is the map system that will allow you to put your own custom pins and notes on the map, so hopefully the exploration should be a delight in this.
Hello? Anyone here?
Anguish fills this residence, Benedict.
I got a bad feeling about this. Since I found the first piece, there must be more. That's him. My father.
I can guide you through his memories.
An awesome looking title new to the channel is The Last Case of Benedict Fox, a spooky title based on Lovecraftian mythology, where protagonist explores a massive mansion attempting to solve the case of the murder of a young couple and the disappearance of their child. Most curiously, he has a demon companion that he can call upon, used most clearly in being able to explore the memories of the recently deceased, which opens up surreal world designs. The art direction looks absolutely fantastic, looking like a proper big budget title, which is very impressive work. We have just a quick teaser for Akatori, a combat focused title that does even have a combo meter with an interesting looking dimension switching mechanic that allows you to traverse between a fantasy world and a futuristic metropolis, each having their own unique set of enemies and challenges, so here's hoping we get more details soon. Another title that resurfaced recently is The Siege and the Sandfox, a self-styled Stealthvania, which makes it unlike anything else on the list, but I'm interested simply because of that. It's not all stealth takedowns, and there are some escape sequences and more combat elements as well, where you are uncovering the truth stemming from a sand-born evil, looking to have amazing environments as well.
My name is Cherry. I was built to entertain my creator. The smartest and most talented engineer ever born into this rotten planet.
A pretty edgy title is Cookie Cutter, where you play as a rage-driven android searching for her kidnapped creator. I really like the art and animation in this, where the melee-focused combat looks fantastic, coupled with interesting looking enemy designs. The android is able to activate her robot form, which looks pretty impressive, looking to be some sort of super move, where in the regular form, she can use weapons like chainsaws, which look very good as well. I honestly wasn't expecting myself to be excited for this next title, since Turbo Kid is based on a movie of the same name from 2015 which I have not watched, but the focus of this game looks interesting enough, no context needed. This is primarily due to the BMX bike, which you have to use in traversal and exploration, and perhaps maybe even in combat, going up ramps, doing crazy jumps, and even activating special anti-gravity tires to stick to ceilings. For context, it is set in 1997 but in some form of post-apocalypse, so there is a retro vibe to this as well, where its initial launch target was October 2022, so I'm guessing a 2023 release is more than likely. Another title that showed up recently on Kickstarter to great success is Mandragora, a dark fantasy entry where you enter the realm of entropy and tear reality asunder, with some impressive boss designs shown off so far. An awesome looking combo focused entry is Vernal Edge, where exploring a chain of floating islands on your skyship, telling a tale of rivalry, revenge and growth as our protagonist seeks out her estranged father. While the enemy designs look a little uninspired, all being some variety of rock monster so far, the combat looks like a delight with launches, spells and even leaping attacks, all with a fantastic look. Of the titles in this list, I think that the game that's going most under the radar is Fallen Tier The Ascension, a gorgeous hand-drawn title with some very impressive art and animations. Our protagonist is a mysterious young boy on a quest to uncover his past, where in the process, you will fight dangerous beasts, defy corrupt gods, and bring balance back to the world.
Well, what are we making?
In some ways, this does resemble Indivisible, where you have to forge new friendships along the way, which you can then call upon in battle, but it's not the Valkyrie profile style combat, but rather resolves in real time. There is supposed to be an open world structure as well as over 40 hours of gameplay, which is impressive, so do them and yourself a favour by wishlisting this game. Coming in at number 10 is Exil, a title that is yet to launch its Kickstarter campaign, but already looks awesome, being a Hollow-like as well in my opinion, so get your wallets ready for when the campaign launches. An amazing looking pixel art entry is Being and Becoming, where you play as the lucid dreamer in a kingdom corrupted by something known as the Collective Dream. As such, it does have some Bloodborne vibes, but I quite like the design of the main character with an old school diving helmet as well as a chain. You are also able to consume the souls of the corrupted, and then to use them as weapons, which hints at the Metroidvania progression. Honestly, I have no idea what is happening with Gestalt, Steam and Cinder, since it should have been out by now, but whether it was COVID related issues or for something that we don't know about, no updates on Twitter is always a bad sign. It's a shame since their pixel artist is one of the most renowned in the industry, combined with the steampunk theme, which was hot, then became oversaturated and might be time for a revival, which could result in an excellent entry. However, I'm still holding out hope that this will be released someday, but if it's another year of no updates, I'll move it to the vaporware end of my list until we get more concrete news. Like a number of games covered earlier in this video, Afterimage is truly a visually spectacular game, being a fantasy entry set within the ruins of an ancient metropolis. It does come to us from a Chinese developer, which means different influences, possibly resulting in more interesting anime designs, but either way, this one's a treat for the eyes. I've been excited about Bow, Path of the Teal Lotus ever since I came to know of its existence, since while you can see the Hollow Knight influence as well, they have wrapped that up with a world based on Japanese folklore and mythology, and even altered the art style enough to resemble classic Japanese works of art, rather than the look that Hollow Knight made famous. You play as a celestial blossom, battling all sorts of yokai, where your bow staff is central to the combat, but is also able to shapeshift into other weapons, where this really has it all, and we just have to be patient and wait to play. Of course, Momodora Moonlit Farewell makes the list, being technically Momodora 5, following on from Reverie Under the Moonlight from 2016, but interestingly, it's a continuation of the story from Momodora 3, although the developer is trying to make it such that no prior knowledge is needed. We are once again playing as a maple leaf wielding priestess, having to save her people from danger, fighting off demons, and finding and ending the source of it all. The pixel art is on point, with some impressive environmental designs, where a sigil system that allows for customization looks awesome as well. This developer also made Minoria, released in 2019, where apparently they themselves were not too happy with it, so hopefully they will find their creative outlet with this game. Taiwanese developer Red Candle Games is known for their horror games and was at the center of a censorship controversy when their game Devotion got delisted off Steam, so it's very interesting to see them turn their attention to the 2D Souls-like Metroidvania 9 Souls. It has some very impressive action and is directly inspired by Sekiro, but does also bring their East Asian culture into this, looking absolutely fantastic. I hope that the 2D Bloodborne-like The Last Faith is not in any trouble, since I've seen some of your comments that they were still looking for a level designer as of a couple of weeks ago, but hopefully with a very successful Kickstarter and the support of publisher Paystack, they will be able to realize their vision of the game. I've said it before and I'll say it again, this is the what if scenario if Castlevania continued to get made into the modern age but chose to stick with pixel art, where you can also see the influence of games like Blasphemous in this as well. The gothic horror influence is clear, with vampires and werewolves and skeletons, while Hero has quite the variety of weapons and magic as well. It was initially supposed to release in 2022, but I don't think that's happening, so hopefully we will get more news soon. Of the Hollow Lights on this list, the game with the most potential is Crowsworn, having a similar visual style but with a Corvian protagonist that uses guns as their primary weapon. The action looks absolutely sick, and the grim darkness of the world is exactly what this genre is known for, but a massively successful Kickstarter campaign to the tune of $1.25 million should help, where their target for release was 2023, so fingers crossed that's the case. Of course, Hollow Knight Silksong is number 1, being the most anticipated indie game bar none, but if you're itching to play something right now, watch this video for my recommendations of the best.